Welcome to your weekly somatic weather map for March 2nd through March 8th. This is the astrological forecast where I talk to you about the upcoming transits of the week in real world language. So if you do not speak astrology fluently, stay with me. I am going to name the transits of the upcoming week, and then I'm going to translate them into real world relatability, real world language, using real world language. So this week is not about chaos. It's about examining the role or the roles you've gotten very good at playing. Mars changes signs. We have a lunar eclipse midweek. Venus shifts into a new sign and meets Saturn by Sunday. And what this all means in practical real world language is patterns around responsibility, effort, and emotional labor are going to become visible, especially the roles that you've normalized because you're capable. We're going to look at the structure of the week first, and then I'm going to dive into rising horoscopes. I do feel it is important for me to make mention of the fact that horoscopes can be limiting in the information that they provide. I use rising horoscopes because the rising sign does give a much better anchor in the general tone of the chart. But if you're seeking an individualized reflection of how these astrological impacts are occurring or will occur in your world, I encourage you to work with a skilled astrologer. I have provided multiple links below on how we can connect so I can do that for you. Now let's get into the weekly pattern. On Monday, Mars moves into Pisces. When Mars changes signs, it shifts how you and I take action. In Pisces, action becomes less direct, it becomes less forceful, it becomes much more emotionally driven. And in real life, that can look like responding from your mood instead of acting from a plan, feeling busy but not being clear on why you're busy, experiencing low-grade fog around motivation. We are seeing on Tuesday, so following this Mars shift on Monday, we have a Virgo lunar eclipse on Tuesday. Now, Virgo governs systems. It governs daily routines. It governs workflows. It governs health habits. It governs the invisible labor that keeps everything running. And eclipses don't create chaos. They create clarity. So they expose what's been operating behind the scenes, if you will. So this week, you may start paying attention to, you may start recognizing, you may start noticing something specific. And that something specific is where you're the default planner, the default emotional regulator, the default person who remembers the details, the one who catches a mistake before anyone else sees that it's coming. And instead of feeling proud about being able to maintain this role, you start to recognize how utterly exhausted you are. Okay, that's the eclipse. Eclipses reveal an imbalance in effort, or I should say this eclipse is revealing an imbalance in effort. Midweek, we have Venus connecting with Uranus, and that can bring small relational wake-ups, a comment that lands differently, a realization about who initiates effort and who doesn't. By Friday, Venus is entering Aries, so desire is going to sharpen. Accommodations may feel heavier. Irritation may surface faster. Patience may run shorter. And then we have on Sunday, by Sunday, Venus meeting Saturn. So that's the sustainability check. That's the dynamic that's under the microscope. Is this dynamic workable long term? If something only functions because you overfunction, this week is going to make that clear, not dramatically, but practically. Now, let's hop into those rising signs. I am going to be speaking about the impact of the lunar eclipse in Virgo in particular when I read for a rising sign this week. It's the precipice or the climactic point of this week, if you will. So, Aries rising, this lunar eclipse is going to activate your 6th house. Aries, this week is going to expose how much of your identity is tied to being indispensable. You move fast, you anticipate, you correct before anyone notices, and you tell yourself that it's leadership. But the quieter truth here is that if you stopped compensating, something would fall apart. And part of you needs to know that. The 6th house eclipse is asking, Are you serving the system, or are you ensuring that it can't function without you? It's an interesting question, right? Because those two things are not the same. You don't need to fix anything this week. You just need to notice the anxiety that rises when you don't. That's the attachment. So Taurus rising, this lunar eclipse is going to activate your 5th house. This eclipse lands in the part of your chart that governs pleasure, that governs creativity, that governs desire. But you don't approach pleasure recklessly. You stabilize it, you contain it, you control it. You may have built a version of self-expression that is palatable, safe, predictable, protective, if you will. And the question this week isn't what do you enjoy, it's where did you start curating yourself for security? If you expressed yourself without calculating the cost, who would feel uncomfortable? And why does that matter so much? Gemini rising, this lunar eclipse is going to be activating your 4th house. This goes to your foundation, family roles, emotional inheritance, what you had to be early on in life, who you had to be early on in life. You likely became the one that could read the room, translate tension, diffuse volatility, but that skill didn't disappear. It followed you into adulthood. And this eclipse is asking, are you still stabilizing emotional environments that are no longer dangerous? And if you stop, what are you afraid will happen? Sometimes hyper-awareness is not intuition, it's adaptation that never turned off. Cancer risings, this lunar eclipse is activating your 3rd house. This week exposes how you communicate to stay safe. You soften, you contextualize, you protect. You don't just speak, you manage impact. And this eclipse is asking you to ask yourself, when did honesty start feeling risky? The 3rd house eclipse reveals how often you edit yourself before anyone else gets the chance to react. If you spoke without pre-adjusting tone, who might see a version of you that feels less controlled? That discomfort is information. Leo risings, where are all my fellow Leo risings at? This eclipse is activating your 2nd house. This eclipse is about evaluating value, but not surface level value. You give generously. Damn, don't we give generously? Time, energy, presence. But the deeper question for us is, do you give from overflow or from fear of being irrelevant? The 2nd house eclipse exposes where generosity becomes strategy. If you stopped overgiving, who might drift? And let them. This is where the let them theory I can apply. Just let them. And why does that possibility tighten your chest? This week is not about money. It's about self-worth without performance. Virgo rising, this lunar eclipse is activating your 1st house. This is identity level. This is a opportunity to reflect on the self-image that you have built around being reliable. You are steady, you are prepared, you are together, but competence has become armor for you. And armor is so heavy. If you are no longer the dependable one, who are you? And who might be disappointed? This eclipse is not asking you to fall apart. It's asking whether your identity has been built around being needed. And there's a difference between love and utility. Notice which one shaped you. Libra rising, this lunar eclipse is activating your 12th house. Now, this is a quiet one. The 12th house governs unconscious patterns. You don't just seek balance, you anticipate imbalance before it happens. You correct it before anyone notices, but constant adjustment erodes self-trust. This eclipse is asking you if you are avoiding conflict or you are avoiding abandonment, because they are not the same thing. And if you stopped smoothing the edges, who would reveal themselves? Let the silence show you. Scorpio risings, this lunar eclipse is activating your 11th house. This hits power inside of friendships and communities. You are often the depth holder. You are the one that people confide in. You're the one who sees what's unsaid. What a gift, and oftentimes what a heavy curse. But if you are always the emotional authority, that is not mutual intimacy. It's hierarchy. And hierarchy feels safe. So this eclipse is asking, if you weren't central to the emotional gravity of the group, who would you be? Watch the resentment that surfaces. That's imbalance going to be coming into focus. Sagittarius rising. This lunar eclipse is activating your 10th house. This touches career and reputation for you. You move with vision, with expansion, and with belief, but you may be compensating for structural inefficiencies. Over-functioning doesn't always look like stress. Sometimes it looks like ambition. And this eclipse is asking you to ask yourself, are you leading or are you carrying? If you stopped absorbing the gaps in leadership around you, would the system evolve or would the system expose itself? That answer matters. Capricorn risings, this lunar eclipse is activating your 9th house. This is about belief systems, the philosophies that you live by, the internal rules that you rarely question. You likely believe that responsibility equals maturity, self-sufficiency equals strength, but that belief is likely isolating you. So this eclipse is asking you, where did you learn that depending on others was weakness? And is that still true? If your worldview shifts, what identity shifts with it? That's the edge for you. Aquarius rising. Okay, this lunar eclipse is activating your 8th house. This goes deep. Shared resources, shared effort, shared emotional labor. You value independence, but independence can become avoidance of vulnerability. This eclipse exposes uneven exchange. Who initiates the repair? Who initiates intimacy? Who initiates hard conversations? Is it always you or never you? That's data. Power is not who needs less. Power is who participates honestly. Pisces rising, 7th house eclipse. This is activating your 7th house. This lunar eclipse is activating your 7th house. This is relational exposure. You sense shifts before words are spoken. You adjust your tone quickly. You preempt discomfort, but preemptive harmony prevents truth. This eclipse is asking you, are you maintaining peace or preventing accountability? If tension rises this week, don't rush to dissolve it. Let it reveal the structure that exists underneath. Not everything that feels uncomfortable is unsafe. Sometimes it's just honest. Eclipses don't take things from you. They reveal what never fully aligned. So this week, you may be shown where your identity has been built around being needed, being central, being responsible, being the steady one. And there's nothing wrong with strength, but strength that requires self-erasure is not strength. It's survival. Notice what feels different when you don't immediately fix or smooth or carry. That difference is the beginning of something much more honest. I'll see you next week.